This not only should be best animated film, this should be the best film of the year, period. Across the board, there's nothing as
Yeah.
good as this film, hands down. And it's remarkable because to get it to, first of all, it was a shoestring budget. Even when you're talking about in euros to dollars, right? It's like $3 million basically.
Wow.
It has made its money back twofold. Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Good to see you today, Dan.
Good to be back, man. We're back. We're going to do a review on the Golden Globe winner for Best Animated Film, Flow.
Before you start, can I say one thing about the Gold? Because you mentioned Golden Globe winning.
Sure.
And before the Golden Globes, I told you there was 3 guarantees. That Best Actor would go to Ralph Fiennes for Conclave.
Which it did not.
It did not. I said that Colin Farrell would win for his portrayal of the Penguin.
Which he did.
Got it. And my third was that Inside Out 2 would win Best Animated Picture. And much to my shock, the movie we're about to talk about, Flow, won.
Took the prize.
F-L-O-W. I thought it was F-L-O.
Kiss my grits.
Yeah, right.
It's an old
for the
Alice
youngsters.
reference. Yeah, rest in peace, Linda
Lavin.
Linda Lavin, who recently passed away as of this recording. Now, Flow came out in the States November 22nd, 2024. This kind of just completely snuck by us.
Did not know it.
It wasn't until really the discussion in the awards leading up to, like all the award conversation leading up to the Golden Globes. But I wanted to say, you were a cat dad before I was, long before I was, many years before I was. And I am now a cat dad of 2. And on a previous episode of the O Brother Podcast, I, of course, debuted the Funko Shadow.
Which, as you can see, you and
Mike's got the O Brother
there.
Funko Pops behind him, as do I.
Yep.
And so the star of this film happens to be a black cat.
And I assumed the cat's name was Flo, and that was a wrong assumption again.
Couldn't have been more incorrect. Right. So let me give the tale of the tape, and then a couple of things I kind of want to say up front, and then we'll sort of get into it, and then I want you to give the synopsis of the film as you often do. So the nice thing about this film is it comes in at about an hour and 25 minutes. Not even a 90-minute film we're dealing with here, right? 85 minutes.
Very tight.
Directed by a Latvian filmmaker named Jins Zilbalotis, who did it was a short film called Aqua that he did back in 2012, Mike, when he was in high school.
Wow.
And it would really serve as the genesis for anybody that's seen that short film. You can find it out on YouTube, but it's about 7 minutes long.
Did you watch it?
I have, yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, wow.
It's about 8 minutes long, 7 minutes. And it would really serve as the genesis to this film, Flow, this feature film. It was written by Jins and also Matisse Kaza. So he had a writing partner, when it comes to the writing. Which, interestingly enough, right, Mike, this is what Jins would call a dialogue-free film, not a silent film, but a dialogue-free film, because the music actually plays a big part of that. We'll talk about that.
I watched it before you, and I almost sent you a note to say, hey, this has no dialogue.
Correct.
Just, as a heads up, thinking that might be a negative.
No, it didn't bother me at all. But can you give us the brief synopsis of Flow?
Yeah, basically, it starts with this cat. We don't.
It sounds like you're like this hip cat over here. But literally, Mike, if you look it up on IMDb, it says starring cat. That's it. No other credits. That's it.
And the cat is looking at its reflection in the mirror in a pond. And the pond or the river is rising. It seems like a tsunami is coming in.
Yeah.
and the water is and cats, as we both know, is cat. I've always been a cat owner. My last cat was 23 years old.
Amazing. Guinness
She
World
would
Record, folks.
Yeah, she would always find, and your cat recently has found the top of the refrigerator as a safe spot from going to the vet.
Right. Right.
So cats tend to, and this cat goes to the highest point it can, which
You're
happens to be,
it
I'm
happens to be
sorry,
what?
happens to be a ceramic cat, a
Oh, right.
gigantic,
This like statue, yeah.
a statue of a cat.
Yeah. But
And there's lots of them.
you're getting in the weeds. Give us the synopsis, I said,
Well,
the flow.
overall, this cat finds its way to meeting other animals,
But
which I'll
why? You
mention.
did you miss you're forgetting the biggest.
Why don't you just do it? Because
Well, I'm
I'm
just saying that you started to set it up with the cat. It opens with the cat
seeing
at
its
the mouth of the
reflection.
river or whatever. Yeah, seeing its reflection. And then this great flood comes.
Yes.
That's the point I was trying to get you
Okay.
to point out, because it's
And I mentioned
it
the tsunami,
it's basically, yeah, a tsunami. So
and
that
I
comes.
it feels like the end of the world to me. There are no humans.
Well, it
There's a
remind
house that's vacated that the
right,
cat climbs up,
right.
but then the water continues to rise.
But before I rudely interrupted you, you were saying that as a result of those events, it thrusts the cat into this scenario or this situation where it is finding itself
In survival
encountering
mode.
by encountering all of these other animals
Yeah.
in this land or this world, wherever it is, which is never pointed out specifically where this is. It's never explicitly said it's this country or this
No,
whatever. It could be anywhere.
it was filmed in Latvia, and
Well, the film wasn't filmed in Latvia. I mean, in other words, it doesn't take
no.
place in Latvia,
No, no,
folks.
no, no.
Right.
But
Right.
that's where the origin of the story is from, and the director and writer is from Latvia.
Correct. Okay.
Um, so I don't know if, that has any, because I didn't recognize a couple of the animals. I had to look up.
Oh God. So Mike probably didn't recognize the capybara, which is the greatest,
Exactly right.
one of the greatest characters. In fact, that character. So, anyways, to see to close the loop on that,
Yeah.
the cat finds itself, um, encountering all these other animals who are basically trying to find their way through this tragedy and figure out a way to survive and ultimately work together,
Yes.
because they end up on a boat together that is
Correct.
floating down the river kind of aimlessly with no, and that's it. There's no humans in the film whatsoever, right? We never ever see a human character at all. It's all animals.
And it's
Um,
very interesting how the animals, especially at first the cat, figures a way to survive. And
right,
that's what who knows what's going on in the minds of these animals. They
right.
just know something bad is happening and they are in survival mode.
Now you kind of started to allude to this. Something you said made me think of this. Well, you talked about the Latvian connection
Yeah.
and sort of, I don't know if that has any relevance. Well, it does. This really is a personal story of the filmmaker, Jintz, his own, this his he up to now, he's always worked by himself. So this is
Mhm.
the first time he's worked with a team, and he had a film. His only other film that he has done is called Away, which I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not.
I think it came out a few years ago, but
Also animated, I assume?
also animated. Yes,
Okay. And this is digital animation.
yes, yeah. It is.
And
Yeah, it's 3D CG animation. Yeah,
and as
yeah.
I've pointed out in the past, when you see a DreamWorks film like Giant
Hmm.
Robot or Migration,
Hmm.
you instantly know it's DreamWorks. When you see a Pixar film,
Right.
you instantly know it's Pixar. This, I was pleasantly surprised I was like, no
Well,
idea
here's the interesting thing, as I'm talking about the Latvian connection and his personal connection. So, it really reflects the journey that he's been on by being it sounds from the interviews I've listened to and watched, his own experience with trying to fit in.
Going
um
solo into a group.
Correct. That point in particular, which is really a big theme in this film. So,
Absolutely.
now you mentioned, the animation, and what's fascinating about this film too is, and by the way, I just want to say up front, to withhold any suspense, is I absolutely love this film. Not only, see, this is what kills me, Mike. We've been talking about and ranting about on the show for a long time now, this sort of lack of creativity, just
Yes.
just overall poor storytelling and poor filmmaking. This not only should be best animated film, this should be the best film of the year. Period. Across the board, there's nothing as
Yeah.
good as this film, hands down. And it's remarkable because to get it to, first of all, it was a shoestring budget. Even when you're talking about in euros to dollars, right? It's like 3 million bucks basically.
Wow.
It has made its money back twofold.
I can
It's made
imagine.
almost about 9 million
And let
bucks.
me share before you
Yeah.
continue that
Yeah.
I love this movie as well. And I think maybe it's our love of cats and animals.
That helps.
It helps,
Yeah.
but it's really a compelling story.
It is. It's so heartwarming and heartbreaking and
Yes.
inspiring and hopeful and sad and
Right. All those things.
joyful.
Like
It's
I kept
it's
thinking
every
of
emotion.
Armageddon. Throughout the
Mhm.
film, Armageddon was popping into my mind. But what was also popping into my mind is, Disney hasn't done something original like this since Eisner.
Yeah. Now, when you say Armageddon, you mean like the Ben Affleck Armageddon or
Well,
the
I'm just talking
Armageddon
in
End of Days? Yeah.
end of days Armageddon.
And not the end of days Arnold Schwarzenegger, literally the end of the world, folks.
Yeah,
Not the end of the world, the REM song, but literally the okay,
that's
sorry.
what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. But what I was gonna say is another fascinating thing about this is that for those that are familiar with this, certainly our production team is familiar with this, is that this entire film was done using a free open source software called Blender,
Wow.
which is just, for those that know about it, like it's kind of phenomenal that that's how this was done. And one thing that I found remarkable as well is that they really only concentrated on and focused on animating what needed to be animated. In other words, what was in the frame, what the camera was showing, like things way off in the background, things, that were not in the frame. They didn't worry about that. They they
And
they,
and
they
it
didn't worry about
worked.
the detail, correct.
It
But
worked.
it also helped, and partly because they're working with a little budget, they sort of have to do that,
Yeah.
right? But I think it also draws your attention to what matters, which is the character performances, in this case, the animals,
Yes.
and the music, which we kind of commented on that briefly at the beginning, but the music evokes so many emotions throughout the film. It's really a remarkable job. Not only that, Mike, but as you know, being cat dads, the characteristics that they're able to capture in these animals, particularly the cat, is so like I have so many pictures and video of Shadow watching Flo with me while we were
Oh, that's
sitting
funny.
together because they were hearing the
The
dogs
sounds,
and
and
the
the
cat,
sound is spectacular
and they're real,
throughout.
with the exception of the capybara character. They're all authentic animal sounds of those animals, dogs, birds, whatever. The
Right.
capybara, though, for those that know, like it has such a high pitched, really grating sound that it makes.
Yeah.
They ended up using like a baby camel as the sound for that
Okay.
character to make it a
I
little bit
wasn't
more,
sure
pleasant.
if that was a giant otter. I honestly didn't know what that was while I was watching the
It's like
film.
it's the largest rodent, I think, on the planet or something.
And then
So
there's a dog. that's this
Yes.
super friendly dog that wants to be friends with all the animals, and all the animals are like, "Hey, back off, Jack. I'm a
Right.
cat, you're a dog." Now,
Right.
if you
Well,
remember, when I was younger, I had a small Peekapoo, and
yes.
we had
Pup.
a pup,
Yeah.
and who was, attached to my hip,
The greatest pup ever.
and we had a cat, a family cat, and I had a bed for a pup, and the
Was it
2 of them
was it Skitter or Scatter? The
scatter,
original Scatter?
the
Okay.
original, and the 2 of them would sleep together, snuggled up like they were,
2 bugs
a
in a
couple.
rug. Yeah.
And it was that remind when I was watching this dog, I'm like, "That's Pup." He was like that. He was like, "Hey, yeah, let's play."
Well, it's funny because, that's just one example. There's so many character arcs going on in the film, right?
Yeah,
Each character has their own sort of arc that their journey that they're on. And dog in particular, the dog sort of starts off really wanting to be part of a group. He's a pack kind of mentality,
he's ready to go.
but you see as the film goes on, the circumstances that they're all thrust into, this kind of survival mode that you have to go by the end of the film, he's on his own, he's kind of doing his thing, and he's much more confident. You can see being independent,
Yeah,
which is there are so many themes, Mike, that are they're just and like I wrote that these are just a handful, right? Resilience, friendship, conflict, survival, teamwork, belonging, individuality, loss, love, on and on and on. And much of that again is conveyed in the soundtrack. It was really incredible how it would evoke
spectacular.
the right emotion.
And knowing what cats sound like in various situations, which this
Yeah,
cat is thrown into all sorts of, you
right,
know, having to swim, having to climb.
right,
Cats love to climb, and they love to climb high.
right.
Sometimes they have trouble climbing down,
Yeah,
but all of those sounds were captured so effortlessly
yeah.
that I was like, "Wow." I
And
was
I
just
think
blown away.
I think we should point out too, for those that are familiar with animation and know anything about animation, water is one of the hardest things to animate. And I mean, and there was two artists working on the water,
Wow.
just two. Normally, you'd have a pretty sizable team, given the complexity that's involved with animating that element. But wow, did they do a spectacular job? And Mike, not to give anything away, but every time the cat entered the water, I couldn't take it, man. I
Yeah.
couldn't. I was so up and down with the emotions in this
Yeah.
film. I couldn't believe it. It just really got to
Especially
me.
it's flowing, like the title. They're
The
it's constant
right,
motion.
right,
So the cat trying to not only get his, head above water,
yeah,
he's trying to survive these currents, and at the same time, he spots these fish and wants to get, you know, knows that's kind of his survival is getting
hmm.
one of these fish.
Well, and by that point, he's also hunting and gathering for the team now that he's finally acclimated to by like
Yes.
midway through. He's diving in, getting the fish, bringing them on the boat, leaving them,
And
and
everybody munches from the same
everybody
pile.
takes yeah,
And
yeah,
we should mention there's 4 main characters. The
the
capybara,
capybara, yeah,
the golden retriever,
the
which is
cat,
the
of
happy
course,
dog,
yeah.
the lemur, which I thought it was a
Oh, right, the
raccoon at
lemur.
first, but it's a
Oh, yeah,
lemur. It's
right,
got much more dexterity with its hands.
right.
And then the limp-winged tall bird, which I did not recognize.
Oh, thanks for that little detail. I didn't even get that, but, God,
Yes.
what a great character. And another thing too, the way they were able to animate in a way the behaviors, which I found to be pretty authentic. I don't feel like they took any artistic license, like you would look and go, "Oh, come on, a cat can't do that," or it was
Right.
very, as Jints would say, it was, I think naturalism versus realism was the approach they took. Like this is really how these animals behave in the
A-
real world.
And a good example is when the cat gets on the boat
Hmm.
and figures a way to work the rudder with its paws to
Mm.
kind of steer the boat out of danger. And we both know, I remember when Disney opened the Animal Kingdom, they had a pet show. I don't know if they still even have it.
They do.
And there was a cat that opened the show
Yeah.
that would come crawling through the audience and all the way and it would lower the banner
Yeah.
that said, "Welcome to the animal show." Cats are incredibly trainable beyond
Right.
what you think of a cat just laying there and purring.
Well, now, what did you think about the cat in the water swimming so much and being submerged? What were
I
your
c
did
I was like you, I was kind of in a state of fear, like, "You've gotta get above water here, you're drowning."
but I also wondered, I wanted that prompted me to look it up because even as a cat owner, I mean, I'm not they're not out in the swimming pool or at the lake, but um, I'm like, okay, this film has been so authentic. I need to look and see how long can a cat remain submerged in water. So I looked it up. It's
Yes,
like 2 to 5 minutes. Now, any time underwater for a cat isn't a good thing. Let's
not
just
for
say
them.
that. But they do have the ability to potentially,
Great
sustain it for
point,
2 to 5 minutes.
because I could see someone saying, "Oh, the cat would have drowned."
Exactly. But
A
that's and
and there was no
clearly
way he was underwater for 5 minutes.
and right, like they weren't again, if you see the film, you realize, of course, they deeply researched all of this. They wouldn't have put that in there. Now, Mike, it's got an IMDb Metascore of 86. I think it should be higher, actually,
Wow.
in this case. I think
I
it should
I
be like
I was
95.
curious.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Rotten Tomatoes, which I know we give less credence to,
Yeah,
but 97 and 99% Rotten Tomatoes. That's where it should be to me.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
the Golden Globes are awarded by the international foreign press.
Mhm.
So, when the Oscars come around, are they going to go with Inside Out 2, the Disney film? I mean, if they see Flow, they're gonna vote Flow, but are
Correct.
they gonna take the time to
Well,
watch it? Because we
and
know
it
they vote and they don't watch half the films.
and it got all kinds of, love at Cannes,
Yeah,
and
that's where it was unveiled.
and it's interesting because they were up against the clock to get it finished in order to be able to present it at Cannes. And in fact, the way that they did this, with such a shoestring budget, relatively speaking, there were no second takes. There's in fact, Mike, you sorry, but there's no deleted scenes.
Right,
It was
right.
basically like first take
They
for
used
everything.
everything.
Everything. And again, I think it's another thing that I appreciated from a filmmaking standpoint because of some of the other crap that we've had to put up with, whether it's
Correct.
streaming series or films, and what we would maybe consider to be waste through that filmmaking process. Based on what,
Regurgitated stories.
right, based on what we see as the final product, it's very wasteful, right? Not to mention not creative, but now we said, no humans, no dialogue. To me, is a testament to the animation, the storytelling, and the heart of this film. I think that is, hands down. And his next film, which he's already working on, it's going to be another animated film. It will have some dialogue. He has said there will be. It's not just going to be animals. There will be, like human characters in the film, but he wasn't saying much beyond that that I could see. So, but we talked about the animal characteristics and the behaviors, like the cat when they need,
Yeah, I always
you
call it
know,
knitting.
yeah, kneading dough,
Yeah.
and just the licking, knock. This was one of the funniest moments in the film. Knocking shit off shelves is a
Yeah.
pretty common cat trait, and then chasing light. If there's like a
Have you ever
laser
seen the
beam or something.
movie Blowout with John Travolta?
I never have seen that.
It's on Criterion, and
Yeah.
it's probably streaming somewhere because it's
Yeah.
an older movie, but
Right.
his job was to get sounds with a parabolic mic, and he would go in the woods, and I felt like they captured the sounds for this film just
Hmm.
it was just right on point, and having cats my whole life, and oftentimes multiple cats, the interactions, the guardedness that cats have,
Yeah.
the way they evolve. Cheryl, my cat, who lived to be 23, went from if I tried to bring her in my room, she would
Hmm.
scratch at my eyes and run
Hmm.
farther away than as she could get.
Right. Right.
Eventually, I couldn't go into the restroom without opening the door and having her laying there sleeping, so I would take her with me into the room.
Yeah.
And I thought that was captured, that personality of a cat and a dog,
Hmm.
and I don't know the other animals, but I'm certain they got it right.
Well, yeah, and there were a lot of dogs actually. There's like 4 dogs in the
At
film,
one
but
point, yeah.
there's a big like whale character in the film, and
Yes.
which again, I don't want to give anything away, but it's very poignant
At
and
the end.
yeah,
Yes.
it's very poignant. But the one thing I wanted to mention too was that what at least was going through my mind. I don't know if you thought of this, but as of this recording, though, there seems to be a little bit of a better report coming out of California, particularly the LA area,
I hope
with
so.
these wildfires that have been going on out there. But one thing that a lot of people have brought up, which is, it's difficult because when people are losing their lives, it sort of gets forgotten. But you think about there was two things. One, the LA fires, right? Because not only are people being displaced and losing their homes and everything,
Yes.
but so are the animals. So are
Correct.
the animals. And I was thinking back to the tsunami and the devastation there. Like the opening, it's within the first 10 minutes that that pivotal moment comes,
Correct.
and it takes your breath away. It's that well done. And again, it's a testament to the filmmaking here. So I just feel like Jintz and all the animators, this whole production team that he put together deserves that level of recognition. This should be best film of the year to kind of send a message that not only is it needed right now with so much other garbage, but the themes, the warmth of the film, it's a lot of negative. There's drama. There's, we're talking about Terrifier. It thinks it's
Right.
nice for a change of pace, and we haven't, I don't think, reviewed an animated film in quite a while.
It's
In
been a
fact,
while.
we did do an animated film featuring a black cat called Luck, if you
That's
remember.
right. That's
But
right.
but this film, Mike, it was like, wow, this is a and now I'm pissed that I didn't buy it and I rented it on
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus. But
Yeah. And I will get a physical copy even if it doesn't have extras.
now that is a testament right
Yeah.
there for you to say that. So, what else would you like to leave folks with in terms of now? Clearly, it's we're both giving it strong recommendations here.
Yeah.
So, what else though would you want to say?
I was not, I heard somebody mention that there were redundant moments in the film, and
Hmm.
I was just taken aback. I have nothing negative to say.
Mm-mm.
And I've always avoided Japan anime. I don't know,
Mm.
it just doesn't suit me, and, I've lived in Japan, worked in Japan,
Yeah,
and
performed in Japan. Yeah,
I would not set this aside. I would make sure to watch this film.
yeah,
You know, it'll how did we watch it? Oh, we rented it,
yeah.
and it's worth every nickel of
It
the
is.
rental on Apple TV,
I
and
would have
again, I would have bought it.
this. I would have paid whatever the going rate is at the theater and walked out more than
Happy.
satisfied. More than
Yes.
satisfied. And this guy, Jintz, this Latvian filmmaker, it just he seems like such a humble, grounded guy, but such a incredibly talented filmmaker.
I would be remiss. I mentioned Michael Eisner by name
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
He is responsible for current day animation because he took over Disney there was only Disney and Epcot. And Disney was being stormed by corporate raiders. They were going to buy up the park, cut it up in pieces, and sell it. Disney World would not be in existence. And also, the first thing Eisner said, and I remember the press conference because I was living in Orlando at the time. He
Yeah.
said, "You know what? We're going to go back to animated films. That's how Walt started this company." And the famous quote by Walt, "Don't forget, this was all created by a mouse."
Mhm.
And he started with Little Mermaid. That led a string of huge hits. Beauty and the Beast, which I think is the first animated film to ever get nominated for Best Oscar. If I'm incorrect, the production assistants will put that up, but I'm pretty sure that's
Was
the
that
only
not
film.
Snow White or something?
Snow White got an honorary
Oh, it was the
Oscar.
honorary,
It was
right.
an
You
honorary
Yeah,
thing.
right,
It wasn't
right,
even nominated. It was just,
right.
you
Okay.
there's that big,
Yeah.
uh, Oscar with all, the dwarfs behind it, you know?
Right, right, yeah.
But Eisner is responsible for the reemergence, and as you know, in a former life, I was dean of a school that taught animation, and I
Mhm.
know some
Yeah.
really good animators out there. One guy I know just went to work for Paramount Plus. So
Mhm.
everybody, Sony's got their Spider Verse,
Yeah.
Pixar, hopefully, you know,
We've got a 3D animator, on our production team, I believe.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And
So,
DreamWorks now is a legit animation company,
let's
but
see. Can he give us a 3D animated, Dan and Mike here on the Old Brother podcast maybe? See what
throwing down
skills
a gauntlet
see
there.
what skills you got? Yeah. Oh, well, listen, I needed this film. It was, just really enjoyable from top to bottom.
And
I
again,
loved
like,
it. Loved it.
we were searching for things to review, and this popped up because of the Golden Globes.
Right.
Otherwise, I still wouldn't know the film existed. So
Yeah, I mean,
hopefully we're getting the word out to people.
seeing this float across the sort of list of new movies on Apple TV Plus, I mean, that got my attention anyways. I'm like,
Right.
Black Cat,
And
but
the first thing I thought of when I saw, although the eyes are a different color, the first thing I thought of was Shadow, your cat.
yeah, and I gotta say, again with Zilba Lotus is his last name, Gents. Like I know him, but the not having dialogue because he's inspired by some silent filmmaking and things is part some of his inspiration. Um, but the amazing thing there too, right, is that it transcends cultures. You don't have to worry about subtitling and understanding what people are saying. It's all in the visual storytelling, which
And even though
I'm
it
not sure I've seen
revolved
it done much better.
no, even though it revolves around animals, it was very relevant to humans.
Well, exactly. Well, that's why I go back to the themes that I mentioned, right? Those are
Yes,
all, and again, it's because it's based on his personal story. So of course,
correct.
it's in there. But and it's also nice that whether you're 5 or 50, this is a film that everybody can enjoy.
I
So
would I would expect. And
yeah, absolutely.
again, we've only given away a fraction of the film. Don't think we do,
Oh
this is
no, there's so
spoilers.
much. Yeah,
There's
yeah,
so much in here, and
it's wonderful.
I was glued to that
Yeah,
TV. I wasn't
yeah.
gonna pause it and get up for a second.
Yeah. So, well, listen, high recommends here from the O Brother podcast. But if you've seen the film, drop some comments on the video. Let us know what you think. Do you have another favorite animated film too that you want to shout out as well? Because there are many out there for sure, but this was something new and different, and it was just so well done. And again, the way that it got done, that in itself was inspiring as well. So this
Yeah,
is one that's you ought to go out and get your hands on and see. So
totally. We're 100%
right on the
together on
same
this one.
page. Yep.
Yep.
Well, flow, Mike. It's all about going with the flow.
Right now, it's on Apple Plus. You can rent it for $6 or maybe cheaper if you have a special plan or whatever,
Yeah.
but
More than
worth
worth
it.
your money.
Worth every
Yeah,
penny.
absolutely.
And,
Well,
before we go,
yeah.
unrelated, as we record this today, David Lynch died, and I
Mhm.
want to give a shout out to him. And this is what I'll be watching tonight because of Lost Highway, which is a great film of his.
Okay.
And
So
just wanted to acknowledge him.
Yeah, rest in peace, David Lynch. 2 recommendations from Mike here on this episode of the Oh Brother podcast. There you go, folks. Flow, Golden Globe winner for Best Animated Film. We'll see what it does at the Oscars, but get yourself on Apple TV Plus.
If I had a vote,
yeah,
I
absolutely, it
would
would be it.
definitely put it
Yeah.
on this. And I thought, like I said, I went in saying, because I hadn't seen Flow, I didn't even know it was in the category.
Yeah,
I knew I've seen Inside Out 2. I thought it was good. It was
Yeah.
kind of a retread, more of the same. So when I saw this, I was like, wow. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, let's get in our boat and head on downstream. But that's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. Been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.